Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. If you haven't purchased your fantasy baseball black book, it's available right now on Amazon. But even more so, you can follow all of Joe Pisapia's coverage of the fantasy baseball draft season here at SportsGrid and also over at Fantasy Pros as he joins us now. And I know a lot of folks are getting ready for the upcoming baseball season. Officially starts on the 18th of March, but here in the States, of course, it is the 27th. That is opening day as well. Joe, thanks for coming on NewsWire. It's great to catch up with you.
Yes, the spring is in the air, and baseball is getting very close. I always feel like spring training's too long, personally. I think maybe cut a week would be nice, and let's just get into games. But yes, it's draft season. We're getting very excited to get there and start to draft these teams. Best ball is already flying all over the place. Some people are doing way too early drafts, and I recommend people taking it Craig Mish style, which is you want to have your fantasy draft the minute before the season starts. The later you can do it, the better. That has always been and will be the Craig Mish way.
No, it is. I've never understood people who say that I can get ahead of it by being smarter than everybody else before a guy goes a little bit higher. I'm like, so you're weighing that up against somebody getting hurt on the last week you took in the first round and not playing the season. You'd rather have that being a little bit smarter than somebody else. I mean, it's one player on a 25-man fantasy roster. Never understood that. Football applies to football for me as well. Anyway, we don't have that much time to go over all that. What we do have time over some potential players that you like in the fantasy baseball draft season. Let's start with the Washington Nationals, Joe. They're coming, right? Like, they're coming fast here. They've got a lot of young prospects coming. Dylan Cruz is one of the kids I like a lot. James Wood is another one of those that getting a full complement of at-bats this season to go along with C.J. Abrams and some of these other offensive players. Dare I say, the Nationals, Joe, may have a very potent offense. We haven't said that in years, have we?
No, we have not. And they've been really good at identifying talent for quite a while now. Whether you go back to Bryce Harper, Strasburg, you go to the obvious, incredible Juan Soto, and now James Wood. You have Dylan Cruz, you mentioned before, but James Wood, to me, you look at that minor league slash, 300 batting average, 400 on base, 500 slugging. He's got power. He's got speed. Now, the frame he's going to grow into in the next couple of years, but I think as soon as this year, this is a real breakout player in 2025 in fantasy. So I'm willing to be aggressive on him because what I'm trying to do is project to what the 2026 draft is going to look like. And I think we'd be really surprised if James Wood wasn't a second-round pick next year. So why not start drafting him a little bit earlier? Because we're not drafting a team for last season. We're drafting a team for this season and what it might look like on the draft boards in 2026. And the guy who's a five-tool player like this, who can hit for average, hit for power, and as you mentioned, a Washington Nationals team that is very good, and I also think is going to cover a lot of games this year too. They're going to keep games close. Maybe they don't win as many games because it's such a tough division there with the Braves, with the Mets. Obviously, the Phillies are always going to be in this thing. But the Nationals, I think, could be one of these teams that really surprises people and covers a lot of games in 2025.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a big jump coming for them, and then maybe in a year from now, we're having a different conversation with them. All right, so this is an interesting player to cover here, Joe, because Matt Shaw is thought to be maybe the best offensive prospect that the Cubs have coming, but it was very clear they were trying to have this romance with Alex Bregman in the offseason, so I'm not really sure how confident they are in Shaw playing 150 games and doing very well this season. But now it looks like he's got the job. Fangraphs projects him to have double-digit home runs, maybe around 15 or so. So that's the good news here. I do get a little concerned when I know the Cubs when a team is pursuing someone else over the prospect that they had. So that would be kind of my only concern with him going in.
Well, I think they were willing to pursue Bregman because of the versatility of Matt Shaw. This is a guy that could play second base for you. He's a guy that in the minor leagues has played some third, has played shortstop. So this is a guy that if you brought in Bregman, it wouldn't make much of a difference because you could stick Bregman at third and move Shaw somewhere else. And just like James Wood, another guy that has elite level minor league slash, right? Over 300 batting average, almost a 400 OBP, and a 500 slugging. So Matt Shaw doesn't have very much left to prove at the minor league level. Now, he is dealing with an oblique issue. He's been a little slow here in camp. He did take live batting practice this weekend, so that is a positive. So monitor this. Maybe Matt Shaw doesn't break with the team, but I would be shocked if he wasn't up and contributing by Memorial Day. And when you're drafting these fantasy teams, if you have these late picks, remember, it's a very long season. Drafting a guy like Shaw, sticking him on your bench is a very wise thing because there's a good chance then Matt Shaw is going to be productive for you maybe 4 of the 6 months of the season, and that is a pretty good investment still.
Yeah, got to get on the field. I know that he's been dealing with an oblique issue by next week or so, or else I think you're right, Joe. I think they may ticket him for Iowa. Okay, so last year I was all over this player, Jung Hoo Lee, and I thought, wow, this is a great sleeper for the 2024 season, and it lasted like a couple of weeks. I feel like Jung Hoo Lee like barely played and was hurt, and that was it.
Mhm.
So, but nobody wants him this season. That's basically the way it is. I cannot imagine the Giants giving this kind of money to a player that's a complete bust, right?
No, I can't either. And as you said, I think it was just injuries last year. And post-hype sleepers are great. I mean, Jackson Holliday is one of my favorite ones to buy back in on, a guy going outside the top 200 ADP. And Jung Hoo Lee, another guy who has batting average, which is harder and harder to find these days. He's got a good spot in the lineup. Right now, he's projected to hit third in this lineup. So instead of being the leadoff guy where the RBI might suffer a little bit, Jung Hoo Lee is going to be a guy that's going to score runs, drive in some runs. He's got Chapman in this lineup now. He's got Willie Adames. He's hitting between those two guys right now, theoretically. It's a really good spot for Jung Hoo Lee to get back on track. Watch him this spring. So far, it's been pretty good there. And another guy that can help you as kind of a 5-category player, which is I would prefer a guy like him late in draft instead of some guy who just steals bases like a Victor Robles. And those guys are going around the same ADP.
All right, fair enough with the Giants. Now, over in the American League, I think that the hype it's too much here, Joe. At this point, there's no discount for Junior Caminero. This was like my favorite player going into the baseball season. Everybody knows about him, though. He had 2 home runs the other day with Tampa Bay. I mean, there's no discount with this. This is probably the highest rising player in all of fantasy baseball. So I guess how high would you end up taking him? Because I mean, I'm seeing like 3rd round here now, Joe.
Well, he hasn't quite gone that early in a lot of the drafts that I've been doing. And I think that's something you're looking at the consensus ADP on Fantasy Pros. It hasn't really caught up yet. He's still got guys like Bregman going over him and some other guys that I think you know what you're getting out of them. But this is, again, about projectability. Where is Junior Caminero going in 2026? And I'm also higher on Junior Caminero even this year than I was last year, not just because the price is a little cheaper, but because he's getting out of that ballpark at home. Tampa was a very tough place. It's not exactly a hitter's haven. Now he's going to be outside in that Steinbrenner field for his home games. And I think there's a chance that that is going to really help him in a positive way as we get into the summertime where the ball starts flying out a little bit there in Florida. So Caminero, again, some guys are worth a little bit of an overpay. James Wood is one, and Junior Caminero is the other.
Yeah, and a lot of home games for Tampa Bay in April and May, mostly road games the remainder of the season. That's just the way that they tried to set it up to avoid the rain. All right, sell me on Gavin Williams this year, Joe. Everyone tried to sell me on him last year. And I mean, mixed results here a little bit, but he was the preeminent hype sleeper going into the baseball season as a pitcher. Was it just getting his feet wet under him in a first full season?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of that, but it's also when you start to look at the xERA and the FIP and all those other metrics where maybe the ERA was a little higher than it should be. It shouldn't have been in the 4.8s. It should have been much closer to under 4. So that's always encouraging. And if you look at, again, we got to look at the minor league track record of these guys. That's going to project to what these guys are going to be. 192 minor league innings, a 2.34 ERA. He was dominant. And look, he's only 25 years old, turning 25 this year. So there's still plenty of time for him to make adjustments at the major league level. And if you can look at that elite level strikeout of 11.9 K per 9, that's really encouraging. He misses bats. It's a good team, a team that's going to be competitive. So Gavin Williams is a definitive late sleeper, I think, for pitchers and could break out this season.
All right, fair enough. Joe, one more player real quick, Wyatt Langford. Everybody knows the name for the Texas Rangers. Certainly, there's a huge chance for a major breakout coming for him.
Yeah, we got a tease with Wyatt Langford last year, and I think we're going to get a whole lot more Wyatt Langford in 2025 that we like to see. It's just about finding consistency and having a little patience. Sometimes as fantasy managers, we just don't have enough of it, and I think it's going to take a little bit this year of Wyatt Langford patience, and I think it's going to pay off in a big way.
Joe and Matt Stryker, Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, our next edition of Fantasy Sports Today. Thanks for coming on the show.